The Veldari scout ship trembled violently as it plunged through the atmosphere, trailing smoke and debris. Inside the cockpit, navigator Thalia Vensorith fought with the failing controls, her silver-scaled skin gleaming with sweat under the emergency lights. Navigation offline, communications offline, life support at 18%, the ship's AI reported with maddening calm. Thalia's four-fingered hands danced across the control panel. Divert remaining power to landing thrusters. The ship screamed in protest as she pulled it into a shallower descent. Through the view screen, a vast wilderness of alien trees rushed toward her. Her vessel clipped the canopy, sending it into a spin before slamming into the ground with enough force to render her unconscious. She awoke to the acrid smell of burning circuitry. A jagged piece of metal had pierced her side, violet blood soaking her flight suit. Gritting her teeth, Thalia pulled herself free and activated her emergency medkit, applying a hasty seal to the wound. Location unknown, she murmured, checking her handheld scanner. Atmosphere breathable, no immediate toxins detected. According to her instruments, the nearest Veldari outpost was several systems away. Her distress beacon might take weeks to reach them, if it reached them at all. Dragging herself from the wreckage, Thalia surveyed the alien landscape. Towering trees with strange blue-green foliage stretched in every direction. The air felt thick and moist against her skin, uncomfortably warm compared to the regulated environments of Veldari ships and colonies. Night was falling. Unfamiliar sounds echoed through the forest as nocturnal creatures stirred. With limited supplies and a worsening injury, Thalia knew her chances of survival were minimal. 3 days later, fever gripped her. The wound had become infected despite her treatments. Hallucinations danced at the edges of her vision as she huddled in the remains of her ship. Death seemed inevitable until she heard something approaching through the underbrush. Thalia reached weakly for her pulse pistol, expecting some predator drawn by the scent of her blood. Instead, a bipedal figure stepped into the clearing. Her heart stopped. 2 arms, 2 legs, no visible scales or tentacles, a mammalian face with forward-facing eyes. Human. Every Veldari child grew up with tales of humans, the merciless conquerors who had nearly subjugated the galaxy before mysteriously withdrawing centuries ago. Humans were monsters in Veldari mythology, ruthless warriors who slaughtered without remorse, who burned worlds and shattered civilizations. And yet her people hadn't encountered one in generations. Some scholars claimed they were extinct. This one approached cautiously, empty hands raised in what she recognized as a universal gesture of peace. He was tall, with dark skin and close-cropped hair. His clothing was simple, practical, not the battle armor of legend. "Hello," he called out. His voice was surprisingly gentle. "Are you hurt? I saw your ship come down." Thalia's translator parsed his words easily. Common galactic. She tried to raise her weapon, but the effort sent waves of pain through her body. "Stay back," she hissed through clenched teeth, her translator converting her Veldari speech. "I know what you are." The human stopped, his expression shifting to concern. "You're injured. I have medical supplies at my camp. I can help you." "Humans do not help," she spat, fighting a wave of dizziness. "They conquer, they destroy." Something like sadness crossed his face. "My name is Eli. I'm a botanist. The only thing I've conquered lately is a particularly stubborn fungal sample." He took another careful step forward. "And if I don't treat that wound soon, you're going to die." As consciousness began to slip away, Thalia realized she had no choice. The human Eli was right. Without help, she would not survive another night. "If you kill me," she whispered, "know that the Veldari will hunt you to extinction." The last thing she saw before darkness claimed her was the human kneeling beside her, his expression not of conquest or cruelty, but of compassion. Thalia woke to unfamiliar surroundings, a small dwelling with walls of rough-hewn wood and a roof of thatched vegetation. Sunlight filtered through a window covered with translucent material. She lay on a simple bed, her wound cleaned and properly dressed with what appeared to be both synthetic bandages and local plant matter. Her first instinct was panic. She tried to sit up but fell back with a gasp of pain. "I wouldn't do that if I were you," came a voice from the doorway. The human, Eli, entered carrying a steaming container. "The infection was pretty bad. I had to use a combination of my medical supplies and some local antibacterial plants." Thalia's hand instinctively reached for her weapon, finding only empty air. Looking for this? Eli nodded toward her pulse pistol, which sat on a shelf across the room. I didn't think it was a good idea to leave it within reach. You seemed pretty convinced I was going to eat you or something. The histories speak of human cruelty, she said, her voice hoarse. Of worlds burned and species enslaved. Eli's expression darkened momentarily. History is written by the survivors. He approached cautiously, offering the container. This is just broth, nothing fancy, but it should be compatible with your system based on the readings from your medical kit. Thalia hesitated before accepting it. The warmth felt good against her fingers, and the aroma, while strange, wasn't unpleasant. Why help me? She demanded. Eli shrugged. Because you needed it. He pulled up a simple chair and sat at a respectful distance. I've been alone on this planet for 3 years studying its ecosystem. I'm not exactly in a position to conquer anything, even if I wanted to. Over the next few days, Thalia observed her human captor, or savior, with wary fascination. Eli moved with an efficient grace, tending his garden, collecting specimens, and checking her wound with gentle hands. He spoke to her about his research, about the unique properties of the local flora. Nothing in his behavior matched the bloodthirsty warriors of Veldari legend. Your people really believe humans are monsters? He asked one evening as he changed her bandages. We are taught that humans nearly destroyed the galactic community before withdrawing centuries ago, she replied, wincing slightly as he applied a new herbal paste to her healing wound. That you killed without remorse and respected no boundaries. There were wars, Eli acknowledged, his voice quiet. Terrible ones, but history is rarely simple. Humans withdrew from galactic politics because we were tired of fighting, not because we were defeated. We chose isolation over continued conflict. As her strength returned, Thalia began to help around the camp, partly from boredom, partly from a growing sense of obligation. She found herself studying Eli when he wasn't looking. The way sunlight played across his dark skin, the careful precision of his movements as he cataloged plant samples, the unexpected kindness in his eyes. Your distress beacon is still transmitting, he told her one night as they sat before the small heating unit in his dwelling. Your people will find you eventually. And what will they do when they find you? She asked, surprising herself with the concern in her voice. Eli met her gaze steadily. I suppose that depends on what you tell them. For the first time since her crash, Thalia felt truly conflicted. Everything she had been taught about humans contradicted what she was experiencing. This man had saved her life and asked nothing in return. He had treated her with respect, not as an enemy or a conquest. I don't know what I'll tell them, she admitted softly. That night, as she lay awake listening to the strange sounds of the alien forest, Thalia realized something unsettling. The most dangerous thing about Eli wasn't that he might be secretly plotting to kill her. It was that she was beginning to care whether he lived or died. Weeks passed, and with each sunrise, the line between caution and curiosity blurred for Thalia. Her wound had healed to a purple scar, tender but no longer debilitating. She found herself venturing farther from Eli's dwelling, exploring the lush alien environment that he had called home for 3 years. This one is particularly interesting, Eli explained one morning, showing her a luminescent blue flower. It only blooms during the full moon cycle, and its nectar has mild analgesic properties. Thalia watched his hands as he carefully collected a sample, struck by their dexterity. Veldari had 4 fingers with subtle webbing, evolved for the semi-aquatic regions of their homeworld, while his 5-fingered hands moved with a precision she found oddly mesmerizing. You could have been a healer among my people, she observed. Eli glanced up, surprise evident in his expression. That's the first compliment you've given me. It is merely an observation, she replied, feeling her neck frills warm slightly, the Veldari equivalent of a blush. Later that evening, as they prepared their meal together, Eli asked about her world. Thalia found herself speaking freely of crystal cities and floating gardens, of the 3 moons that governed Veldari tides and traditions. And family, he asked, do you have one waiting for your return? I have a clan, she explained, but not a bonded mate if that's what you're asking. She hesitated before adding, Scout navigators rarely form permanent attachments. Our duties keep us traveling too frequently. Sounds lonely, Eli murmured. Says the man who chose to live alone on an uninhabited planet, she countered with unexpected playfulness. His laughter resonated through the small dwelling, warm and genuine. Fair point. That night, a violent storm swept through the forest. Thunder shook the walls of Eli's home as rain lashed against the windows. Thalia startled at a particularly loud crack, lightning striking nearby. It's okay, Eli assured her, moving to sit beside her on the small couch. This shelter has weathered worse. Whether from the storm's intensity or the growing comfort in his presence, Thalia didn't move away. Instead, she found herself leaning slightly toward his warmth. The first human in generations, she mused aloud, and I find one who lives like a hermit on a forgotten world. Lucky you, he replied with a half-smile. You could have crashed near a human settlement and discovered we're mostly just ordinary people with bills to pay and dreams to chase. Is that what you're doing here, chasing dreams? Eli's expression softened. Something like that, after the last border conflict I needed space, perspective. You were a warrior then? She asked, tension returning to her shoulders. A medic, he corrected. I saved lives, I didn't take them. His eyes met hers. Not all humans are conquerors, Thalia, just like I suspect not all Veldari are exactly as I might have heard. The implication hung between them. What would she discover if she looked beyond her preconceptions? When Eli's hand cautiously covered hers, the touch sent an unexpected current through her body. Different species, different worlds, yet in that moment, the connection felt elemental, transcending biology and history. This is unwise, she whispered, even as her fingers intertwined with his. Probably, he agreed, but neither moved away. The storm outside mirrored the one brewing within her, chaotic, powerful, impossible to ignore. When his lips finally met hers, the sensation was alien yet undeniably right. His warmth against her cooler skin created a pleasant friction as exploring hands discovered the fascinating differences in their physicality. That night, beneath sheets rustled by the storm's lingering breeze, they mapped the geography of each other's bodies with tender curiosity. His smooth skin against her subtle scales, her iridescent frills extending in pleasure, his sighs mingling with her melodic vocalizations. Their coupling was both scientific exploration and primal connection, two souls finding unexpected harbor in each other's embrace. Afterward, wrapped in his arms, Thalia gazed out at the storm-washed sky clearing to reveal unfamiliar stars. What happens, Eli murmured against her shoulder, when your people find you? The question hung in the darkness, unanswered but unavoidable. Like a shadow growing longer with the setting sun, the reality of their situation stretched before them. For the first time since her crash landing, Thalia feared rescue. The distress beacon's alert pierced through their morning routine, its high-pitched whine shattering the peaceful domesticity they had established. Thalia froze, her hands still clutching the medicinal plants she had been sorting. They've found me, she said, her voice hollow. Eli's expression remained carefully neutral as he moved to the window. How long? A few hours, perhaps less. Veldari rescue vessels are designed for atmospheric entry and precision landings. She set down the plants with trembling hands. Eli, you need to leave. This is my home, he replied simply. You don't understand. Thalia's frills flattened against her neck, a sign of acute distress. There are protocols regarding human contact, ancient directives from the war era that have never been rescinded. Understanding dawned in his eyes. They'll try to kill me. They won't try, they'll succeed. She moved to him, placing her hands on his chest. Please, I can tell them I was alone, that I survived independently. They'll have no reason to search beyond my crash site. Eli covered her hands with his own. And then what? You return to your people, pretend this never happened, pretend you still believe humans are monsters. If it keeps you alive, it keeps the truth buried, he interrupted. How many more centuries before another chance meeting like ours? How long will your people cling to myths instead of reaching for understanding? Outside, the day had turned unnaturally bright, sunlight reflecting off something massive entering the atmosphere. Time was running out. I am one scout, Thalia argued desperately. They won't listen to me about centuries of doctrine. If not you, then who? Eli's voice was gentle but insistent. Every revolution in thinking begins with a single voice. As the distant roar of engines grew louder, Thalia made her decision. She helped Eli gather his most important research, proof of his peaceful existence here, and together they walked into the clearing beyond his dwelling to await her people's arrival. The Veldari rescue vessel was sleek and predatory, its crystalline hull gleaming like a polished blade in the midday sun. It settled on the ground with barely a whisper, a testament to technology far beyond what Eli possessed. The boarding ramp extended, and three figures emerged, two guards in ceremonial armor and a tall female whose elaborate frills marked her as a clan elder. "Navigator Thalia Vensorith," the elder called out, her voice amplified by her translator. "We believed you lost." "Elder Cora," Thalia acknowledged with a formal bow. "I was fortunate to survive the crash." It was then that the elder's gaze shifted to Eli, her four-pupiled eyes widening in shock. "Abomination," she hissed, as the guards raised their weapons instinctively. "A human! Stand away from it, Navigator!" Instead, Thalia moved to stand between Eli and her people. "He saved my life, Elder. He tended my wounds and shared his home. There was no violence, no conquest, only kindness." "It has corrupted your mind," Elder Cora declared. "The human virus affects judgment. Guards, secure the Navigator and eliminate the threat." As the guards advanced, Thalia drew her pulse pistol, not pointing it at her people, but holding it firmly enough to give them pause. "I am not corrupted. I am awakened," she stated, her voice carrying the authority of absolute conviction. "For generations, we have feared shadows and taught our children to tremble at the memory of ancient conflicts. But look at him, Elder, look at his home. Is this the lair of a conqueror?" The elder's frills rippled with conflicting emotions. "The protocols are absolute." "The protocols are outdated," Thalia countered. "Based on fear, not fact. I've lived alongside this human for weeks. I've studied his research, peaceful work that could benefit our own people." Behind her, Eli remained silent, understanding that this was her battle to fight. "You would challenge the wisdom of generations for this, creature?" Elder Cora demanded. Thalia straightened to her full height, her scales catching the sunlight. "I would challenge any wisdom that demands blindness in the name of tradition. Scan him, Elder. Scan his dwelling. You will find no weapons of war, no plans of conquest, only a scientist seeking knowledge." The standoff stretched, tense and brittle as thin ice, while above them the alien sun continued its indifferent journey across the sky. The silence that followed Thalia's declaration seemed to stretch across galaxies. Elder Cora's frills trembled with barely contained emotion as her gaze moved from Thalia to Eli and back again. "You would risk everything, your position, your clan standing for this human." The elder's voice carried notes of both incredulity and curiosity. "I risk nothing by standing for truth," Thalia replied. "Our histories are incomplete, Elder, perhaps deliberately so." She lowered her weapon slowly. "I ask only that you observe before you judge." After a long moment, Elder Cora made a subtle gesture and the guards lowered their weapons, though they remained alert. "Show me," she commanded. Over the next hours, Thalia guided the elder through Eli's modest dwelling, presenting his research journals, his medicinal discoveries, the careful catalogs of local flora and fauna. Eli explained his work with patience and clarity, answering the elder's increasingly detailed questions about his presence on this remote world. "You chose isolation," Elder Cora observed, her tone less hostile than before. "Why?" "To heal," Eli replied simply. "After the border conflicts, I needed distance from both victory and defeat. Yet humans still possess warships. Your species remains capable of destruction." "As does yours," he countered respectfully. "Capability doesn't equal intent. Every spacefaring species has the technology to destroy. It's what we choose to build that defines us." The elder's secondary eyelids blinked slowly as she considered his words. Finally, she turned to Thalia. "The Council must hear of this," she said. "Direct contact with a human, peaceful contact, changes many calculations." "Then you won't execute him?" Thalia asked, tension still evident in her posture. "Not today," Elder Cora replied. "But Navigator, this situation remains unprecedented. The human cannot be allowed to simply continue here with knowledge of our people." "Then I will remain with him," Thalia declared, moving to stand beside Eli, "as observer and emissary." The elder's frills flared in surprise. "You would abandon your duties, your people." "I propose a new duty," Thalia said, reaching for Eli's hand and clasping it firmly. First contact has been re-established between our species after centuries. This requires careful diplomacy, not hasty retreat or violence. Elder Cora studied their joined hands, so different yet fitting together with evident comfort. Something shifted in her ancient eyes, a calculation being recalibrated after centuries of certainty. "You've changed, Navigator." "I've grown," Thalia corrected gently, "as our people must if we are to move beyond ancient fears." After further deliberation, a compromise was reached. Elder Cora would return to the council with evidence of peaceful human contact, including samples of Eli's research that could benefit Veldari medicine. Meanwhile, Thalia would remain as an official envoy, establishing the groundwork for potential diplomatic relations while continuing to observe human behavior through her unique position. As the Veldari vessel prepared for departure, Elder Cora pulled Thalia aside. "The council may not share my flexibility," she warned. "They may recall you forcibly or worse." "Then we will have time to prepare," Thalia replied, "and to gather more evidence that cooperation serves both our peoples better than ancient animosity." When the ship finally ascended into the atmosphere, its crystalline hull glinting like a departing star, Thalia and Eli stood together in the clearing, watching until it vanished from sight. "So," Eli said, turning to her with a tentative smile, "Ambassador Thalia, that's quite a promotion." "A self-appointed one," she admitted, her frills rippling with amusement. "The council may not recognize it officially." "Does it matter?" He pulled her gently into his arms. "You've already bridged worlds no one thought could be connected. Whatever comes next, that victory belongs to you." Thalia's fingers traced the contours of his face, still marveling at how something once feared could become so beloved. "To us," she corrected. "The victory belongs to us." That night, beneath an alien sky filled with stars that had witnessed both the worst and best of their species, they began planning their impossible future. It would not be easy. Centuries of mistrust would not dissolve overnight. The Veldari Council might reject their overtures. Human authorities, when eventually contacted, might respond with similar suspicion. But as they lay entwined, different in form yet aligned in purpose, Thalia and Eli embodied a truth more powerful than any ancient fear. That connection, not isolation, was the true path to survival. That understanding, not ignorance, was the foundation of peace. And that love, against all odds and across all differences, had the power to rewrite even the oldest stories of enemies into something new and unexpected, a beginning rather than an end. In the morning, they would begin their work as unofficial ambassadors of a fragile new alliance. But for tonight, they were simply two beings who had discovered in each other not the enemy of legend, but the companion of a lifetime.